palettes will hopefully the ones I want to keep aren't broken. Hey y'all, my name is Ashley, and this is usually where I tell you I'm a collector in order of makeup, and today we're going to see that hoard. So I'm going to reorganize, hopefully declutter, and go through my eyeshadow palettes. I have no idea how many I have, but they are all on the floor with me here, which is why there's a different backdrop going on. This is like the drawers I keep my makeup in. My desk is over here. So like that's kind of like the whereabouts in my beauty space I am. But if you want to watch me go through the hordes of makeup I've collected over the years, then continue watching. All right, so I have a crap ton of eyeshadow, and I never realized how much I have purchased maybe over the last few years. I was really good at decluttering maybe over 2 years ago, because we have moved houses almost what seems like every 2 years until we purchased this home in April. And I remember decluttering things like when we moved from where we used to live in Montgomery, Texas, now that we live in like closer to Houston now. But yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by organizing my makeup. I just kind of want to put in a little disclaimer. This is not me being like, oh, look at all this crap I've purchased. It's not. This is just a declutter, reorganize video. So I'm going to sort my makeup into piles by brand, because I believe that's going to help me make the decision on what I should keep and what I shouldn't keep, and also how I should organize it. Right now, the way I'm organizing my makeup is I have quite a few, probably like one whole set of these drawers, which are Alex 5 drawers, because I'm a short person. I don't like where the 9 drawer comes up to me. So I think I'm going to have like one unit, or maybe like 4 drawers on the bottom of the units dedicated to eyeshadow palettes. I do have some like really nice ones that I have brought down and put here that like they're on shelves on the wall just because they are like nicer palettes, a little bit more pricey. And then I do have a drawer in my desk of stuff that I'm using currently. So I brought all of that out, put it in this pile, but yeah. All right, so I got all of my palettes kind of sorted by brand name or like in a category if I only have like one-off palettes from brands. I'm gonna start off with the palettes that I know have come from BoxyCharm or something like that, because I have a feeling a lot of those I am gonna get rid of because I have not used them. And lately BoxyCharm has been like really downhill. But I do have 2 baskets here, which I don't know if these are gonna be enough to hold anything. But in one basket, I am gonna put stuff in to put in my desk for the holiday season, just because it's around the corner. And then like stuff I wanna use, like eyeshadow pots I wanna make like Christmas looks or like fall looks for Thanksgiving and stuff like that. And then I'm gonna start putting the stuff I wanna declutter in this basket here. And if it overflows, I will let you know. But this is the first stack of palettes, and I'm gonna show you the palettes. Well, hopefully the ones I wanna keep aren't broken. I don't give a shit about the ones I don't wanna keep. So like I was saying, this is the first stack I'm gonna go through. I'm gonna show you the palette. I'm not gonna open up every palette and show you. Well, I guess I kinda have to know if I wanna keep it. So I guess I will. All right, this first one is a Hello Charmer BoxyCharm palette, like straight up BoxyCharm. I've never used this palette, and I think I'm gonna go ahead and declutter it. And what I'm gonna do is once I'm gonna declutter, like if I've never used it, I might try to sell it on Poshmark. I'm also gonna offer it to friends and family before I figure out what to do from there. But that is a definite declutter. The only shade that's really like drawing my attention is the shade Swipe Up, which is like this. On camera, you can't even tell, but it's like this orange with iridescent sparkle in it. But I have a feeling I might have something similar in one of my Norvina, like those big palettes that Norvina came out with. So first palette, declutter, pretty proud of myself there. The next palette is the Ditto Venus palette. This is also another BoxyCharm palette. This is actually like a really cute theme. Like all of it's like they're all planets and space themed, like the names are, and they're all different finishes, different formulas. Like the concept is really cute. Like I like it, but it's all really, really neutral. So I'm gonna put that aside to consider later, but most likely it's gonna be a declutter. The next palette is the Ace Beauté Nostalgia palette. This definitely came from BoxyCharm. I have actually used this one, This one's got a really pretty color story. So I'm actually gonna go ahead and keep this because this is a really nice bold summer palette. This next palette kind of pisses me off, but this is from Peach Queen or Peachy Queen, whatever it is, Cosmetics. And I got this because obviously I live in the state of Texas and it's like a Texas themed eyeshadow palette. Okay, this palette arrived broken. So I'm gonna show you. And I've like held on to it for no reason. But you got the shade Spurs, which is this matte black right here that's broken, and the shade Frito Pie, which is like a very pale nude matte that's broken. So I contacted them and they said they were gonna send me a new one, and they never fucking did. So immediately, like, I didn't get my money back, I didn't get a new palette, it's broken in 2 shades and the black's everywhere. So it's not really like, and when I pay for a palette, I expect it to come brand new. If I break it on my own, that's my business. But to receive a broken palette, I'm not okay with. So because of this situation and being told that I was going to get a new palette, and this happened like over a year ago. I can't believe I've hoarded it this long. I'll never buy from this brand, ever. So that's shit customer service, and I'm not okay with that. So I'm gonna get rid of this. The next palette is the Book of Enchantment by Spellbound Beauty. I actually did a video on this palette, and this palette is really, really pretty, but I don't think this company is in business anymore. But I'm gonna keep it because I think it's really, really pretty, and I really like this palette. I also like the concept of the brand, so it's really sad that like I couldn't find anything about this brand anymore. So I got 2 different Hip Dot palettes here, and I have the Zion palette, which is gonna be this one right here. It's never been used. It's like it's very fall. It's got some muted pinks and reds in here. But I think I'm gonna go ahead and declutter this. Like, it's pretty, but I've never reached for it, ever. So, the second one is the Hip Dot Cenote palette right here. I hope I said that right. And this one's got some really pretty blues, but I've never reached for it, and I've had it for over a year. So I think it's time to go ahead and declutter it, pass it along to someone else. And if anything, I'm also gonna let Sarah go through what I'm decluttering, and she'll probably keep, I think she'll keep one of these palettes for sure. The next palette is from Kiss Me Now Cosmetics called Makeup and Chill. This is a really nice, bold, and colorful eyeshadow palette. I'm gonna think about this one. I've used it a few times. It was really nice. This is a palette I recently got from BoxyCharm, and I believe this is the second time I received this BoxyCharm, so I believe I passed on the first one. But it's the Iconic London Dusk to Dance palette, and I really like Iconic London's products, but this eyeshadow palette really bores me, so I will not be keeping this. Not to mention, there's only 4 mattes, and the rest of those shades are shimmers. Look at all those shimmers. That's a lot of shimmer. For a palette with this many shades, there definitely should be more mattes than just fucking 4. All right, and finally is the Lovestruck palette from Bella & Co Cosmetics. I picked up this palette around Valentine's Day. I think it was after Valentine's Day because I got it for sale. And I honestly got this for the red pressed glitter because it is hard to find any type of red pressed glitter or like red glittery shade like ever. So I'm keeping this because I bought it for that shade. I got it on sale, and even though I haven't used it yet, I'm sure I'll get around to it. So out of that first stack, which was 10 palettes, I'm actually decluttering 5, which I'm really proud of myself. I'm keeping 3, and I have 2 in a maybe pile. And I'm gonna go through that maybe pile at the end of this video, or at the end of decluttering all of this other shit. So, which hopefully then I can feel like wanting to get rid of more. So, basket is getting there. Next, I got 4 different Tarte palettes. There's a high chance I'm decluttering most of this because Tarte is not a brand I reach for. It's kind of boring, but it's just not my cup of tea. They have nice things. It's just their eyeshadows are not exciting. So the first one up is the Tarte Rainforest of the Sea Volume 3. So it does look like this on the inside. Bunch of nudes. In fact, they're all shimmer shades. That is the front of it. This is going to be a declutter. I'm pretty sure I received this from BoxyCharm. I have used it though because the front is dirty and it's that horrible like matte texture that like clings to dirt. No, I have not. It's just, no, I have used this. Okay. So this is the Tartiest Pro palette, and I think this might be one of the first ones they've come out with, or I don't know, but this is what it looks like on the inside. So it's a lot of neutrals. You do have a nice row of shimmers here, and then all of these shades are mattes. This is not my cup of tea. So I am actually going to put it in the maybe pile because I do need to keep at least a couple nude eyeshadow palettes. Now we got the Tartiest, I don't even know if that's how you say it, but I kind of like calling it the Tartiest Pro Remix palette. So it's another big palette from Tarte. And this one's way more colorful, but it's only got 3 mattes in it and the rest of them are shimmers. I'm gonna pass this along just because even though it's colorful, they're like dull. They're not like bright and bold colors, which is something that I prefer to have. And the final palette is the High Tides and Good Vibes eyeshadow palette by Tarte. So this one's super cute because of the sea turtles and like there's like liquid in there that kind of moves. And I'm gonna be keeping this palette because it's just so damn cute. But this is what it looks like on the inside. You got 4 pressed glitters right here. It looks like 3 shimmers and the rest are mattes, but I just think this palette's really cute, so I'm gonna keep it. So now I'm gonna do this in like 2 separate, well not 2 separate parts, but I'm gonna start off with my Anastasia Beverly Hills palettes. So these are my palettes right here, and then I'll do my Norvina palettes next. I have 8 of these Anastasia Beverly Hills palettes. A lot of them are like cult favorites. So the first palette is the Riviera palette. This came out a couple years ago, and I'm gonna go ahead and keep this because I really like this palette. I do like how there's colorful, like there's pops of color in this palette, and it's great to travel with. Now I have the Sultry, what just fell out? Oh, the brush. So next up is the Sultry palette. I'm gonna be keeping this one as well. I obviously really love this palette. You can see that I've really digged into these shadows. And this is like a really nice neutral palette. So keeping this might mean I might not, most likely not keep that Tarte palette. Then we have like the original Norvina palette right here. This one's also got a shit ton of use. So I don't know how I feel about this one. So I'm gonna put this one aside. For a long time, I felt like I needed to collect all of these like Anastasia Beverly Hills palettes, but this one's kind of boring. Especially when you compare it to like the Norvina Pro Pigment palettes. All right, so this is the Alyssa Edwards collaboration with Anastasia Beverly Hills. This one's really bold and colorful. I did pick this one up at TJ Maxx. I've used a couple shades out of here, but I definitely want to get more use out of this just because it's so pretty and bold. And those brushes are a pain in the ass. I am so glad they stopped putting them in their new fucking palettes because who's using them? So now we got Soft Glam. So this is another neutral palette. I really want to look at this side by side with Sultry and try to only keep one of them. These fucking brushes are god awful, but this is going to be a maybe. And I used to have Modern Renaissance. I actually decluttered that a long time ago, and I think Sarah has it. So, and I know that one's like a huge cult favorite. So this one is the Ambreezy palette, which is like, got I think 2 more shades more than the other ones. This one is absolutely gorgeous, so I will be keeping this. But the shades in here are smaller, so there is more shades in this palette than there is in the previous ones I just showed you. But I'm not getting rid of that. The last one, oh wait, I've got 2 more, I lied. So the next one is Subculture, which, whew, that was a long time ago. I really like the tones in Subculture, but I haven't used it in so long. I kind of want to like give it a go again. And if it's like really crappy, then I'll just like toss it. But I really like these like grungy colors in here with like the army greens and the like the deep blue and the mustard yellow. So I'm gonna keep it along with the really shitty brush that comes with it. The last Anastasia Beverly Hills palette I have is the Nueve palette, which this just released in August, and I really like this palette, so I will be keeping this. Not to mention I just purchased it, and the formula in this is way better than the formula in those. So I didn't declutter any of my Anastasia Beverly Hills, but I do have 2 in the maybe pile, so I'm really proud of that. I don't even know if this is worth showing on camera, but I do have all 6 of the Norvina Pro Pigment palettes. I will not be getting rid of these. I use these all the time. They're all really well loved, and they're fantastic palettes with great colors in them. So I will be keeping all of these, and I don't think there'll ever be a day when I declutter them, just because I reach for them so often that I don't even store these in a drawer. They have their own like makeup palette organizer that I display on my organizers. This is really sad that I kind of made this pile the way it is, but I do have a pile of palettes here, and it's basically a pile of palettes of brands that were great, and they aren't great anymore, and they're boring as fuck. So I'm going to start off with the Urban Decay Naked Smoky palette. I am going to go ahead and toss this. It's just a cool nude palette, and I'm sure I have this in a different format. So this is going to go. All right, so I have the Too Faced Pretty Rich palette. So it's this palette right here. I think it's time to pass this palette along. At the time, I thought this palette was really nice, and it's actually good quality, unlike a lot of palettes that Too Faced comes out with during the holiday season. This was a holiday release, and this was a great palette. But looking at it now, it is so boring. Like, I'm so surprised that I bought this. So I'm going to go ahead and pass this along. Like, the colors in the back of the packaging is way more, like, poppy and bold than what you actually see when you open the palette. But I'm decluttering it. I think I got this palette in a BoxyCharm, but it is a Lorac palette. And it is the Lorac Pro Palette Artist Edition. Oh God, I'm not keeping that. That is so fucking boring. Like, I'm not keeping that. It's not even worth, like, talking about. Next is another Too Faced palette, and it's the Too Faced Palm Springs palette. I believe this is another BoxyCharm palette I received. And I don't know, this one has a few pretty colors in it, but I don't think it's worth keeping. And it smells like sunscreen and oranges. So this is a palette I'm going to put in my maybe pile. Now this palette I'm not going to get rid of just because I did get it this year. I don't believe I liked it very much. I did do a review of this palette back when it first came out. And it is the Too Faced Too Femme palette. And this palette was a lot smaller than I thought it was when purchasing it. But it does have a really pretty color story, but it wasn't very pigmented. But I'm willing to, like, try it out again before I decide if I want to get rid of it or keep it. But I remember very clearly in my video, I was not a fan. But if you wanted to see that, I'll go ahead and link the video or go put whatever up here so you can watch it if it interests you. All right, now we have the Urban Decay Wired palette. So it's this palette right here. I did get this from TJ Maxx. It's still, like, because I keep the boxes because I'm a hoarder. But the tag is still, like, I paid $14.99 for this palette. But this is, like, a really pretty, bold, and beautiful palette. The only problem is I got this from TJ Maxx, and I've never used it. So I'm going to put this in my maybe pile. I might swatch it, or I might just toss it. When I say toss it, I mean, like, declutter it and see if my friends want it, see if family wants it, and then figure out my choices from there. My next pile is Natasha Denona. So I have 4 of the midi palettes. I'm not a fan of the idea of buying the large palettes and paying that much for them. But I have 4 mid palettes, and then I have, like, 2 of these palettes, and then 1 of the mini palettes. But the first palette is the Zendo palette. And I just got this in BoxyCharm, so I was, like, thoroughly impressed that I got the Zendo palette in my BoxyCharm. I will be keeping this because it is a really pretty color story. Yes, you got neutrals here, but, like, the greens and the blues over here, like, they draw me in. So I'm going to keep this, and I've only had it a month, so, like, I'm not decluttering it. The next palette is the Natasha Denona My Dream palette. This is a new release. So I think this palette is really pretty, especially for fall and, like, Christmas time. So I'm going to be keeping this. I just bought this maybe a month ago, so I'm not getting rid of it. I mean, obviously, I just bought it. The next Natasha Denona palette is the Pastel palette. This also, did this come out this year or, like, end of last year? Either way, I am keeping this palette. It is absolutely gorgeous, and I like it. So I'm not getting rid of it. All right, the last midi palette I have is the Natasha Denona Love palette, and this came out a couple years ago, but it is a Valentine's launch that came out, and I am going to keep this because it has some really nice pinks, reds, and purples in it, and I really like this palette. Usually when it comes to Natasha Denona or the higher, like, the bigger, I guess, like, the more luxurious brands, I won't buy a palette unless I know I like the color story. So, like, I'm not going to waste my money, which is why there's, like, gap in purchases, like, of when certain Natasha Denona palettes came out. She came out with a lot of neutral ones that I never picked up, but the ones with a little bit more color, obviously, I picked up. I like them. I like the formula. So that's why I'm keeping all 4 of my Natasha Denona palettes. Now, these two I got in a BoxyCharm. So I'm actually going to go ahead and pass these along because they're very boring. And I have 4 of the larger palettes. I'm pretty sure these colors are going to be in that Love palette I have. And this one's just some oranges and browns and like a gold shimmer. So I'm going to be decluttering these two. And this is another Valentine launch. And this one I'm going to go ahead and put in the maybe pile. But this is a really small palette. When I purchased this, I thought it was going to be the size of one of these, which obviously I was wrong. And it's the Mini Love palette. So I'm going to go ahead and put this aside and I'll think about it. So angles may have changed, lighting may have changed, the sun's out again, but I had to pick up my oldest from kindergarten and then also my battery died. So I figured I'd do maybe a couple more piles and then organize what I'm keeping so far. And that would kind of be the end of today's video. And then I'll throw up a part 2 tomorrow. That way it's just not too long because, you know, everyone's got a life. I think the next big pile I want to go through is Colourpop. So I actually have 2 different stacks of Colourpop here. So this is going to be my first stack. This is going to be my second stack. A lot of these are collaborations. I think I mentioned this in my like Colourpop mystery box haul that I don't buy a lot of their launches. I kind of buy more of their collaborations that pique my interest. So that's what a lot of this is. So the first one is going to be the 143 palette. And this is a Valentine's palette that came out a little while ago. And it was around the same time they released like the pressed powder blushes that were like in a heart shape, which I love those so much. This is actually really pretty, but it's a little bit like crushed on this one. I've never used it. It's like really pretty. Ooh, I'm gonna keep that because I like I just swatched the dust from the one that was broken. It is a small palette and I'm not a fan of keeping like these skinnier small palettes, but you know what? I really like the color story on this. I'm gonna go ahead and keep this one. So I'm gonna be keeping this next one as well, but it is the Nightmare Before Christmas collaboration that came out last holiday season. So this is what the palette looks like on the inside. I'm totally keeping this. One, I'm a huge fan of Nightmare Before Christmas, and also like it's cute. All right, so this is the palette that I just got in my mystery box. This is Plush Like Me, and this one's got that grunge vibe to it. So it's got some maroons and some nudes. I'm actually, even though I have not used this yet, as I'm going through my palettes, I think I'm gonna put this in the maybe pile. So I may not keep this palette. This is the Hocus Pocus 2 palette. So this is like it's Hocus Pocus 2 off the newest movie, but it's also Colourpop's 3rd palette with Hocus Pocus. So like, to me, I find that confusing, but this is what it looks like on the inside. This is my favorite one out of all of the Colourpop Hocus Pocus collaborations. I have reached for this palette so many times this month. I love it. I've even filmed a TikTok or 2 using this palette. It's just gorgeous. If you can still get your hands on it, I really recommend you grab it. So I will be keeping it. Now I've got some 9-pan palettes. Let's start off with the 2 green ones I have. So I have Just My Luck and Mint to Be. This is going to be Mint to Be. So you got some nice pastel greens, mint, Avi. And then Just My Luck, if I'm correct, has like darker greens. Yes. I'm gonna go ahead and keep both of these because I don't know if I have to say it, but I really like the color green. Next is Blow and Smoke and Lilac You a Lot. So Blow and Smoke is going to be like this black and cool gray tone palette. I like this palette. I like to use it to like add depth to looks. So I will be keeping this. Something tells me I'm not going to be getting rid of any Colourpop makeup. So Lilac You a Lot is lots of purples and pastel purples. I mean, the name says it all. Another palette I will be keeping. Next, I've got 3 9-pans and I believe 1 15-pan palette. And these are all the Star Wars launches from Colourpop. In fact, they're actually coming out with a C-3PO palette on Thursday, and you bet I'm gonna get my hands on that one. Just because I really like Star Wars. Plus, it's like this, it's a bunch of gold. It's really pretty. So this is the Star Wars palette. So my guess is it's just like called the Star Wars palette. But I think this is based off of A New Hope because that is like what's right here. I'm going to be keeping this. Gosh, it'd be so cute if they come out with palettes for like each of the movies. I mean, just like the OG 3 would make me happy. And then my favorite villain of all, I've got the Darth Vader palette right here. I'm not going to be getting rid of that. Then of course I have the Child palette and the Mandalorian palette. So this is what the Mandalorian palette looks like on the inside. You've got lots of like those gray tones with the mustard yellow. And of course the Child palette. So you got lots of greens. So keeping that. It's got Star Wars on it. I'm not gonna get rid of it. Whew. All right, next stack. So I do have 2 of the Animal Crossing palettes right here. I'm actually gonna go ahead and put these in the maybe pile. Even though I am a big fan of Animal Crossing, I do play it on my Nintendo Switch. These, I've never used these and I bought them. Like they're so tiny. Like that's, okay, never mind. I'm keeping it because I like the green. But I don't know if I'll use it just because I haven't pulled them out yet. And I like to pick out my bigger palettes. So that is the Tom Nook palette. Right, is that what it's called? Oh, it's just called the Nook Ink palette, but it's got Tom Nook on it. And this one has La Belle on it, and it's La Belle of the Ball. And this is like a little purple quad right here. So I might as well keep them. I got another little holiday palette here. I have the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer palette from Colourpop. And I will be keeping this because Christmas is around the corner. So I'll be getting a lot of use out of this. And I do like the deep green in here and the reds. It is a very Christmas time palette. Plus it's got Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer on it. Like who does not think that's cute? So here is my other Hocus Pocus palette. This is from their first collection. This is also my least favorite collection that they launched. So just because it's very muted, but it is kind of like dark. So you can make those really nice witchy looks with it. But out of all the 3 color stories, this one is my least favorite, but I will be keeping it because I love Halloween and I love Hocus Pocus. The next one is the Witching Hour. This is the second collection of Hocus Pocus with Colourpop. And I like this one a lot better than the first one, but not as much as the new one because like I love these 2 rows right here, like the dark greens and dark purples. But I feel like the newer palette has a lot more vibrancy to it. But this is still a really cute palette and I'm not gonna be getting rid of it. See, I'm a sucker for these collabs. So I think I've got a couple more collabs here, but this is going to be the Sailor Moon collaboration. I love Sailor Moon. I watched the show when I was a kid and it's just like a nice nostalgia palette for me. This one you can tell I've used quite a bit, but this has got a lot of pastel colors. To me, this is like a springtime palette. I do get a lot of use out of it and I'm going to be keeping it. I'm not going to declutter it. I feel like this video was starting out really strong. I was getting rid of quite a few palettes. I mean, my basket is full, but got to the Colourpop and it's like, no, I'm going to keep all of you. Now, I believe these 2 palettes came out around the same time. So I have Colourpop's Lush Life, which I love this palette. This is like a beautiful summer palette. And then Cabana Club, which looks like this on the inside. Another very summery palette. I believe this was an Ulta release. I can't quite remember. But I am going to be keeping both of these. The last 2 are collaborations, and the first one is going to be the Malibu Barbie palette, which I'm going to be keeping this one as well. The final Colourpop palette I have is one that kind of, like, I was really excited to see it drop, especially since we've all seen another brand do a collaboration with this company, or this theme, I should say, and everyone was disappointed in that collaboration. And it is going to be the Harry Potter collaboration. And I was very excited to get this palette. I didn't realize, like, okay, I knew there was like controversy around Harry Potter and J.K. Rowling. I didn't realize like how many people were gonna boycott the collection. Like look, I don't agree with the things that J.K. Rowling has said, but at the same time, I have learned in my life that you have to separate the brand from the person, because you can't sit here and be like, well, I don't like J.K. Rowling, I'm not going to support Harry Potter. Harry Potter was my childhood, okay? Like, the first movie came out when I was in like kindergarten. Like, this is my childhood. And it's not like you go to the grocery store. You say you go buy your, I don't know, fucking chicken thighs or whatever the hell you're gonna cook for dinner that night, right? You don't go and Google the farm your fucking chicken comes from and be like, oh, that person's a bad person, I will not buy that chicken. You don't do that. You don't drink a Diet Coke and be like, oh, let me Google things about Diet Coke and be like, oh, boycott Diet Coke. You don't. The same with Starbucks. I don't know a lot of people who drink Starbucks, and Starbucks has done some shitty things, but here we are still using them. So you can't sit here and continue to be like, cancel, 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 cancel. In fact, I have some advice for you. Ricky Gervais just came out with a new stand-up. So great. So great. Give it a watch. It's on Netflix. I don't know how new it is. I just watched it last night. It was hilarious, but he spoke so many truths about it and how things are getting ridiculous. That's all I'm gonna say. But I will be keeping my Harry Potter palettes. All right, I'm gonna do one small stack because that was a big stack. And then I'm gonna go ahead and put away the makeup I'm keeping so far away, nice and organized, and I'll show you what it looks like. There's 3 palettes right here, right? Ooh, adjust myself. I am on the floor, so I have to keep adjusting myself so my bum doesn't go numb. But I have 3 palettes right here, and I kind of like piled them together because they're all like celebrity owned, or the face of the brand are celebrities. So the first one is Rare Beauty, which is like, I believe owned by like Selena Gomez. I got this in BoxyCharm. I'm not going to be keeping this. I've never used it, and it just doesn't pique my interest. So the whole brand, like a lot of people keep saying how much these products are great and they love it. The brand doesn't catch my attention. I kind of find it boring. So it's a very unpopular opinion, but that's just how I feel. This is a palette I reviewed this year. I got it around Valentine's, and it is the Kylie Cosmetics. Is there a name for this palette? Okay, there's no name on this palette, but it is the Kylie Cosmetics like Valentine palette. Is what I'm gonna call it. This is what it looks like on the inside. The only reason I'm not getting rid of this is because I bought it this year, and I have a video that I want to film at the end of the year of a bunch of products that I did not like. So I'm going to keep it, but only for the purpose of that video, because this sucks. That was my opinion in my video, and I'm going to stick to it. So I've heard shitty things about this palette. I've never used this palette. I got this in BoxyCharm. And this is the Fenty Beauty Moroccan Spice Palette. So I like Fenty Beauty. There's a lot of products I really like. But this palette, I am going to go ahead and declutter it. I've never used it, and I've heard shit things about it. So I'm not even going to take my time to try it out. You can't even buy it anymore. So I'm going to declutter it. Okay, because I have a little bit of OCD, so far I've gone through 53 palettes. So I'm gonna pick out 7 more palettes, so I like have an even number of palettes I went through, go through those, and then I'll put them away. So the first one is the Patrick Ta Major Dimension 2. So I really like this palette, and I'm gonna go ahead and keep it because I only just got it this year. And the way I got it was I turned my points from Sephora into a $100 gift card, and this is what I chose to buy with it. When I have the opportunity to turn my points into a gift card, I like to buy things that I normally wouldn't purchase. And because it is a $68 palette, I took the opportunity to basically get it for free. So I will be keeping this because I really do like it. And I don't have that many like neutral palettes, so it's definitely worth keeping. This next palette, I did a review on it not too long ago at all, and it is the Danessa Myricks Lightwork Volume 4 palette. I do go over my thoughts and opinions, first impressions on this palette. I will go ahead and add a card somewhere around here. But I'm obviously going to keep this palette. This palette was a pretty penny, but I also really enjoy the Velvet Chromes in this palette, so keeping this. So this palette was recently redropped by Milk Cosmetics, and people went crazy for it, and I'm so glad I got one because this was like on my makeup wish list for a few years now, and it is the Melt Cosmetics Muerte palette. So this was like their Day of the Dead one. There is another half. I do not have the other half. I really want the other half, but unfortunately they only just dropped this one. So I picked it up. This is what the palette looks like on the inside. So I will be keeping this because I was trying to get this for years and I only just got it. But I just love this. Like, I love the color story, but not only that, I love the skulls and the flowers, and it's just like very much my aesthetic. So keeping this. And so we got 3 more Melt palettes, and that is Smoke Sessions. I will be keeping this. I love this palette. This palette is well loved and well used, and this is what she looks like on the inside. So you can tell that I only like, so like on this palette, it has like little marijuanas, little marijuana plants embossed at the bottom of the palette. And I've only like dipped in at the tops of the shades because I didn't want to ruin the embossment. But I will be keeping this palette. I love this palette. The next 2 palettes have the same theme from Melt Cosmetics. And so the next one is the 420 palette. And this one I actually have the entire PR box because the box, I thought the box was really dope. So dope. See what I did there? So I went ahead and got it. But this also has a similar embossment of marijuana plants. Just a little bit more realistic compared to just the simple shape. But I will also be keeping this palette. My last Melt Cosmetics palette is the Mary Jane palette. So this one is like some cool tone neutrals. I will also be keeping this. I really like this palette. I really don't see myself ever parting with any of the Melt Cosmetic palettes I've purchased, just because they're just so beautiful, from the packaging to the colors and to the shadows. This last palette is gonna go on my like maybe shelf. Like, I don't know what to do with it yet. And that is this Charlotte Tilbury palette. So back in August, I got a Charlotte Tilbury mystery box, and I was very disappointed with the products that I received in it. I got this eyeshadow palette that's now discontinued, and this palette is called the Instant Eye Palette Smoky Eyes Are Forever. So it's nice. I haven't decided if I want to use it yet and keep it, so I'm gonna put that in my maybe pile. All right, I will be right back and showing you how I'm gonna organize this. So you probably can't see me very well, and I apologize for that, but this is going to be the first drawer I'm gonna fill up with eyeshadow. It had eyeshadow in beforehand, but I believe this is where I'm gonna try to, I don't know how I wanna organize this, but I've got this drawer, I've got this drawer. I have this drawer, and I have this drawer. What I'm gonna go ahead and do is move the contents of this drawer right here. So I have this drawer, which is full of shit, that I will move into this drawer. So that way all of my eyeshadows will be here, 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 and here. And I think that's the best way to do it. And if I do need a 6th drawer, I will empty the contents of this drawer out and move it on over. So let's get started. Well, I guess I don't really have a few organizers. I only have one organizer that I was using beforehand, and this is from Sunny Cosmetics, and I was using this for my Colourpop 9-pan palette. So I'll probably will do the same, just because they fit in there just so perfectly. But don't be surprised that this next part is sped up. All right, so here's what we got so far. I have my affordable makeup in here along with Colourpop, Wet n Wild. I believe Ace Beauté is somewhat affordable, so I went ahead and threw that palette in here. And then this drawer is still empty. I don't know what I'm gonna do with this drawer. But, and here is, I got basically a bunch of makeup that you can get at Sephora. So all my Milk Cosmetics are in here. The Too Faced palette I kept, my Patrick Ta palette, and my Anastasia Beverly Hills palettes are in here. So that is like all the palettes that I'm keeping so far. But the next thing that I'm going to put away, and these are basically going in the same spot as they were beforehand. And I got this organizer off of Amazon, and these are for my Norvina palettes. So I like these on my, like on top of my 5 drawers so I can see them, but I use these very often, like pretty often. I pull one out at least once a week. So these, I just love having like all those colors in one palette. The quality is great. Yes, they're mostly pressed pigments, but I really enjoy them. So I'm gonna go ahead and put them in order that they came out in. So 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. It looks like Norvina can only come out with one more before I run out of room. But these just go on top of my 5 drawers, and that is how it's going to be. And I'll show you that like later on. And then the last thing to put away are my Natasha Denona palettes. Ooh, that came out with like a little bit of an accent. So these are all of my Natasha Denona palettes. These actually go on a acrylic shelf that I have on my wall. So I'm gonna place those over there. All right, so I feel super accomplished today. Starbucks, treating myself. So this is where I put my Norvina palettes. So you can kind of see them right here. Eventually I want to get through all of this stuff, and I really want to decorate this for Christmas and use this as a second backdrop. I plan on, once I get everything reorganized, gone through, doing like a beauty room tour. I mean, if that sounds interesting to you, let me know in the comments below. But I feel super accomplished today. In this video, I got rid of all of this. So went through 60 palettes. I don't know how many are in this basket, but I will do a grand total after I finish going through all the palettes behind me right here. So, but that is it for this video. So if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and like and subscribe. Let me know what you do when it comes to like decluttering your makeup collection. Do you have a hard time parting with things, or are you very easily, like, you can let things go? Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you tomorrow with part 2. Bye, y'all.